Burgundy Ballers, welcome back to a very special and collaborative episode here on the Ballin In Burgundy podcast. Yeah, myself and Angie are in the building just like last episode, and we have got a very special guest. We've been putting in the work these past few months, talking with some fellas all on the other side of the planet and down south. We got our man Curtis from Outback Quarterback Podcast. Kurt, what's going on, man?
Thanks for having me, John. Great to be here, boys. You're right. We have been talking for a while. My main man, Doss, on our podcast, he's a fiend with the DMs. He does not let anyone escape his grasp. So as soon as he saw your stuff, he said, we need to be on that show. And yeah, great to be here.
No, appreciate you coming on with us. Dawes has been putting in the work. You, Dawes, and I forget the other fellow's name. My apologies.
Holy.
Ollie, man, y'all
Yeah,
putting in good
Chris Hall.
work. Yeah, so y'all put in good work. If y'all have not already, go like and subscribe to the Quarterback Podcast on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, the whole nine. All their links down in the description. We've got a lot to talk about because the draft is just under 25 days away. And Andrew, you and I have talked for a bit. I know me, Dawes, and Kurt and the fellas have talked about in the DMs. And talking before we started this episode, it is probably the deepest draft class, especially on defense, I have seen in years. Before we get into any of that, and we got to do some housekeeping for all of our non-subscribers. Don't forget to like and subscribe here on Ball and Birdie Podcast YouTube at 520 subscribers. If we want to get bigger, y'all gotta hit that subscribe button. Over 80% of y'all who watch these videos are not subscribed. Hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free and it costs $0.00. Instagram and TikTok at Ball and Birdie Podcast. Twitter at BIB Podcast 22. Because Twitter hates long usernames. Outback Quarterback Podcast. YouTube. Instagram. If they got a Twitter, it's going to be in the description. Curtis is going to get all of that and more for me. I'm going to put it all in the description. It's going to be on the thumbnail. It's going to be on the title, the whole nine. It's going to be on Instagram for sure. Y'all go give them a watch. They've been putting in work week after week after week after week, and it has been amazing to watch them succeed and grow on a platform because YouTube, it's not the fairest of them all, especially like that Snow White movie. It's not for everyone. So if y'all have not already, go support our fellas at the Outback QB podcast. But fellas, let's get into the meat and potatoes of why we're here. This 2025 NFL draft. I talked with y'all about the agenda. I'm gonna start with kind of what everyone, especially in the Commanders community, but it could be in Chiefs country too, Chiefs Kingdom. And I'll start there. I picked number 31. What are you thinking for your Kansas City Chiefs? Are you sticking at 31, or do you think you should trade back into the second and pick up some draft capital for your two-time or three-time Super Bowl champions?
Well, I appreciate you bringing up the Chiefs because a lot of people are sick of the Chiefs, and I can understand why. It's been since we lost the Super Bowl, I have copped a lot of abuse in our emails, our DMs, because everyone just likes kicking us now that we're down. So I appreciate that you've welcomed them to the chat. Look, it's a really interesting question because I think everybody from pick 18 onwards through to the late picks in the first round, everybody seems to think, well, let's trade back. Can we trade back and get some extra draft capital in the second, third, even fourth round because it is so deep? And that's great in theory, but somebody has to want to trade up in order to trade back with you. And if everybody wants to trade back, I can't see too many candidates looking to get up just because it is so deep, as we said. So, I honestly, as a team that's had very late draft picks for the last few years because of success, the Chiefs, I think we just make the best of the pick that we have. We're already picking at 31. We haven't got anything before that. We won't take any of the absolutely elite talent on paper. So let's take the best player available at 31 because you can't get cute if you're the Chiefs. I think, as everyone said, they got a little lucky this year with a few things, and this roster's maybe not as good as you would expect for a Super Bowl team. So there are some holes to fill.
Yeah, for sure. Andrew, any thoughts on that?
I'm too familiar with the Chiefs, but I definitely think that's an important point to consider that there may not be teams looking to trade up to 31. There isn't any huge names around there that I feel like are going to be drawing a ton of attention. I feel like since the Commanders at 29 are so close, that could be the same scenario. Um, I hope that there is that option though, because I feel like it's a valuable thing to consider. Um, but I'm not totally sure with the Chiefs. The rest, how many other picks they have. I know for us, we're pretty tight on picks. So yeah, we've only got five. Um, but I feel like it'll come down to who's offering what and who's available. It sort of depends. But
The
yeah,
Chiefs have a little bit early. I mean, they got the first, the second, then they have two thirds. They've got one from Tennessee early, and then their late third, and then they've got a fourth, and then nothing to the seventh. But you don't often do much damage with the fifth and sixth rounds unless you're geniuses. So we
that's
won't
not
worry about
bad.
it.
That's not
Yeah,
bad.
not bad.
It's not
Not
bad.
bad.
We're figuring out if we should trade back and go from 5 to 7, and we would consider that a party.
So what are you? I mean, what are you looking to fill with those mid rounds? What's the objective if you move out of one?
If I'm moving out of one and I'd go to, let's say, 40, probably with the New Orleans right there at 40, you trade back about 11 spots, you probably get to pick up a third and about a fifth. I'd go defensive line especially. I
Edge.
mean, edge for sure. I mean, we've talked about it. We've talked about it. Everyone online has talked about it. The defensive line and defensive edge group are insane. They're guys in you could get guys at 50 to 75 who, if they came out last year, they would have been second to first round guys. If they came out next year, first to second round guys. I would probably, if I had to trade back from trade it back from 29 and get later, I would pick defensive end.
What's your Sorry, I've got builders at the house, boys. There's a few bangs in the background. I apologize. What's your weak point on the D line? You think? I mean, it's not Deron Payne, but you brought in Kinlaw. What do you think of him?
hmm
Armstrong, Farrell. Where is the real weak spot on that line?
Hmm.
On the line, it's got to be edge still. It's still got to be D end. Like I said, Payne, Kinlaw, Sheldon Day, Carl Davis, Johnny Newton brought in those guys. We brought in Dietrich Wise. I have a New England. We're doing a recap right now, real quick. But I think it's still got to be edge. Dante Fowler put up 10 and a half sacks. He went back to Dallas because Jamarcus Lawrence wanted the hell up out of there real quick. Um, but we've got no one consistent. Like, I was a fan of JJB, Javante Jean Baptiste, out of Notre Dame last year. He put up some good things for us. But if we can't get in on this defensive end class, I'm gonna have a real sour taste in my mouth.
The truth
Can imagine.
is, the truth is this year we don't have any players that stand out on the line. Last year, I mean, Fowler was great.
Yep.
We lost Allen, although he didn't put up a lot of production, but he was still a somewhat key part of that defensive line.
He was our run support, ironically.
Yeah, he stuffed the middle, and this year we downgraded even more when it was already a weak point. So definitely something to address. And John, your point on the depth of the edge position, three of the guys on my list, I don't even think are going to be first round picks. Yeah, I would be honestly happy taking them at 29 if there isn't that trade back option that we were talking about earlier. There's so much talent in later rounds, second round especially, but um yeah, a lot of players I like.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think defensive tackle we're probably fine. Um, because I mean, you're gonna draft a guy, you're gonna pick up, some UDFA's, you're gonna pick up some wave three free agents. But Andrew's right. We've gotten weaker. There's not a flashy name outside of Deron Payne that you could say, oh, that's the Commanders' defensive line, because that was John
And he's
Allen
on the
and
downfall.
Payne's. Yeah, I mean, Andrew, we're still getting reactions to what you said in September about Allen and Payne still,
I
and
remember.
that's that might be our greatest non full episode ever. That's sitting at like 30 something thousand views, few hundred likes. Like, it's insanity, and that's across like Instagram and TikTok. That's not actually, no, that's just Instagram alone.
At the
Um,
time, that was really controversial, but now a lot of fans would probably agree
agree.
that neither of them did much for this team, and they'd be happy with them gone. We lost one of them, but Payne's still here. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna switch the question right back on Curtis. What would you say is the weak point on that Chiefs roster where you look at this draft and say we've got to get in on this position group?
Look, there are actually a few weak points. The point that really worries me the most is the O line because we lost Joe Tooney. He's out of here. He's at Chicago now, and yes, he didn't have his greatest Super Bowl, but there were reasons why. You know, we had a few weak spots that we were trying to cover in that game, and he's been such an elite performer. Even though he's early mid 30s now, he's still a really good O lineman, and we've seen that those guys can go forever if they're superstars. So that's a big loss. And the tackle position, so Tooney's a guard, obviously, but the tackle position worries me especially because we haven't brought in much and we've still got Juwan Taylor. So on one side, we've got Jalen Moore. On the other side, we've got Juwan Taylor, who is the walking penalty. I'm not sure he understands the offside rule or much of what's going on there. And he uses his hands in odd ways. So he really concerns me. I think that's the number one area to address. Then there are other spots too. Like we need to find a replacement for Travis Kelce, not in the first round, but certainly at some point because this is his last year. There are some really good tight ends in this draft, so we can address that. So tackle, guard, tight end, and then the other thing on the offense before we even get to the defense is running back. The Chiefs capitulated in the Super Bowl. They had 15 yards total. Outside of Patrick Mahomes, who had 16 himself. Pacheco was nowhere. Kareem Hunt's almost at the end now. So that's just the offense. And then there are a couple of little pieces on the defense as well.
Yeah, Joe. The fact you gave up Joe Tooney for a fifth, I was like, that's it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know. And
surprising.
It's sometimes with these teams that are at the top of their game, they give up good players maybe a year early. I mean, that was the Bill Belichick way, and they don't get much back. And you can look at it and go, that's genius, or they're doing it at the right time. You'd rather that now than hang on too long and get nothing. But when you're only getting a fifth round pick back, could we have just held on? I know there's salary cap implications, but still, it does concern me a little.
Yeah. But I mean, Joe Tooney to Chicago, they got him, they got Jonah Jackson, they got Drew Dahlman. Like they revamped that interior because Caleb got killed.
Well, they had to, didn't they? I mean, it does look better. It's always on paper, some O-lines look fantastic this time of year. I think there are a few teams have done it over the last little while, but then they have to actually mesh and work well together. But as far as what they could have done so far, the Bears have made some really good moves.
Ben Johnson knows what he's doing. I'm shocked you didn't say wide receiver because Xavier Worthy is due for a court case. Rasheed Rice is due for a court case. Juju
good lawyers at the Chiefs, man. They'll get
apparently. Juju Boo Boo Smith Schuster is one TikTok dance away from retirement. D Hop went to Baltimore. I think Justin Watson or Jalen Watson went to Houston. I think it's Justin Watson. Yeah. So you're
defensive back.
Yeah, he's the corner. Thank you. So you're out. You're out two receivers between Watson and Hopkins. Two are due for jail time. And Xavier Worthy is also making $1 million garages with his face on it while getting into domestic assault allegations. So that's not the greatest look for your receivers.
It's been an up and down 12 months for the receivers, and I can't confess to knowing too much about the legal side of it, so I'll let that run its course. But I mean, we've got a history at the Chiefs of having star players. Kareem Hunt had his problems when he was here. Tyreek Hill had his problems when he was at the Chiefs. So it's not been a smooth ride for those offensive weapons. But if you park that, I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen there. So you can't really judge it. Do we need another wide receiver? Yes, I think we do. If they are playing and if Rice comes back okay from the injury, then you've got Worthy, Rice, you've got Hollywood Brown. That's actually a pretty good trio.
Yes.
So when they're on the field, I think they would complement each other really well. And I don't think it's going to be a first, second, maybe even third round thing that we need to address as long as these guys don't lose their careers because of the off-field stuff. Yeah. Whether you draft to compensate for that potential risk, I don't think you do. I think you just have to assume that things work out okay. And if you get desperate, then there's other ways you can fill those spots. But we've seen that the Chiefs have won Super Bowls without superstar wide receivers or without more than one of them. So I don't want to ride that luck anymore, but I would really rather just fortify that O-line, which I think is really concerning. And if you can get someone at in the fourth or fifth round that fills the need at wide receiver or at least complements the big boys, then I think that's okay. And Worthy showed enough in year one, right? If he plays, I think there was enough potential there to go, this guy could be a really good wide receiver too behind Rashi.
I agree. I forgot y'all had re-signed Hollywood Brown. I was like, I feel like I'm missing a person because Hollywood I don't think played that season, did he? I don't think he played it all last year.
Yeah, well, that's just Hollywood Brown. He just doesn't play much at all. You get about 7 games a year out of that guy, don't you?
Yeah, that's true. Because I don't want to say Rice and Worthy are similar enough to where they're both just deep threat speedy guys. Because if I think Worthy could be your Tyreek. I think Rasheed is probably like a poor man's Deshaun Jackson, where he's got the speed, but he's also got good enough hands to where you don't have to worry about, 8 drops a game.
Yeah, and Rashi can play in the slot,
And
whereas
he play in the
Worthy can
slot.
extend the field a little. So I think there are some ways that they cross over, but when you play them together, although we didn't see it much last year, when you play them together, I think there is potential to cause some trouble. And then if Hollywood's on the park, then he makes it even better.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get into these draft targets because I'm gonna put a picture about right about here of my condensed list, folks. All right. I know I go on and on about these draft picks. I know I go on rants and tangents about how deep this running back class is. I'm sorry, I'm passionate. All right. But we kept talking about this before streaming. We talked about it on the Burgundy breakdown. I said it before we even got it started on this. One of the deepest draft classes where you've got talent in the 7th round. You've got cats who don't give up sacks, who get double digit sacks, who get interceptions in the 7th round. 2021 was one of the worst classes of around outside of Brock Purdy. Here, you could get a guy in the 5th. You're like, I can reach for him a little bit, and if he gives you, let's say you get a wide receiver in the 5th. If he gives you wide receiver 2 numbers out of the 5th, what are these first round guys gonna do? We'll start out with CURT'S Chiefs, and I'm gonna start on defense. Are there any guys on this defensive class where you're like, if I can get my hands on this guy, home run draft?
There are a couple, and I think that's the other need really for the Chiefs, the D line, the interior D line, or maybe someone else who can produce to take the pressure off of Karlaftis and Jones. And Jones doesn't necessarily have a whole lot of years left. I think the defensive interior is stronger this year than it was last year. There was probably only, I think there was only one guy. Was it Byron Murphy who was taken on the interior last year in the 1st round for the Seahawks? And
Yeah.
that might be it, unless I'm remembering that wrong. But there are a couple of guys, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, even Darius Alexander from Toledo, who
Love him.
if they're still there at pick 31, whilst O-line is a big need for the Chiefs, I think you'd have a look. That said, the Commanders are probably going to take one of them at 29, right?
It's a possibility. They're that good. They would become the number 2 right behind Newton, like immediately.
And those guys have been relatively consistent too, and there's a bit of production. Like, is there one of those that you really want at 29 if he was there? Or, I know you want the edge, so you're probably more looking there, right?
If we're talking interior defensive line, why am I forgetting his name? You just said Darius Alexander. I love him. I've watched tape on him. His numbers are outstanding. He's an incredible player. His only thing is that he hasn't played a lot of super talented schools. He's one of those small school players.
Yeah.
So he's a little bit hard to judge sometimes, especially with those statistics. But the way
was
he
Quinion
plays,
Mitchell from Toledo as well? Was he?
Yeah.
yeah, he was. Yeah,
So, that sometimes they work out, right? We had the same hesitation
exactly.
last year,
Yeah.
but you look at him and go, okay, that's worked.
Yeah, and he's a good pass rusher, but an even better run stopper, which is what the Commanders need. So if we take him at 29, he's one of the guys on my list. I'd be very happy with it.
Yeah, Alexander and Harmon. If we took him that 29, I would bat my eye, been like, all right, let me take a step back, analyze the pick, but it's not because of the player. I think it's just because of draft need, like team need. But it's not going to be a pick where I'm going to be like, how dare you do the Emmanuel Forbes pick all over again?
Oh, Emmanuel Forbes. We talked a lot about him on the show. I actually liked him before the draft, and I thought it was cool when they took a risk, but damn, I got that one badly wrong. So what do you guys want on the edge? Are you in or out on Shamar Stewart? Would you rather Mike Williams? What do you think?
I'm I'm in the boat of I'm not a fan of either A&M prospect or Michael Williams. I think they'll both, if not all three, be gone by 29. Because you've got Cincinnati could use one, San Francisco could use one, New Orleans could use one, the Jets could use one, Seattle could use like there's probably 10 of the picks before like the Chargers could use one, Green Bay could like there's so many guys or teams that could use defensive interior and defensive end before us. I'm probably out on those three, but if Donovan Ezeraku out of
Yep.
Boston College, or my guy, Andrew's guy, our guy, and Mike Green sit out of Marshall
Hmm.
sitting there at 29, I am hauling ass into the ballot and sending, give me Commander Green in DC.
The only reason Mike Green didn't make my list is because don't believe there's a chance he's there at 29.
Probably not.
If he is, I'm taking him immediately over anybody else. Um,
Yep.
like John said, Donovan Ezeraku, is that how you pronounce his last name?
I think it's Ezeraku. I'm gonna go back and do double round checks to make sure I'm saying these
I
last
may have
names right.
butchered it.
Maybe.
Uh, love him. Great numbers, great film, great player overall. But then my other guys on my list, I have who could be second round picks. I got three of them: Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau from
Okay.
Ohio State. Great players. And then I love Josiah Stewart from Michigan. He's I'm not totally sure where he's going to be, but he should be there at 29. I'd be happy taking him there or trading back a little bit and taking him.
What do you guys? What's your other need if it's not edge? Chin's gone. Obviously, is it cornerback, safety? Is the secondary worry you at all, or you feel okay?
Well, I'm worried about the secondary. The number one guy on my list here is Nick Amenworry, the safety from
South
where's he from
Carolina.
again? South Carolina. Thank you. Yeah, he's physical beast, good ball skills, can cover. He's got sort of everything. So I would love him at 29.
He might be gone by that pick.
He very well could be. Yeah.
Um, if not Wari, honestly, if I was sitting at like, if we traded back a little bit and I got my hands on like Xavier Watts at the safety position at Notre Dame, I am not thinking twice. Similar build. He was just in the college football playoffs, farther along than Wari was. Um, if it wasn't safety, because I'm dying of names on my board, I'd go corner. There's a name on my list that people have falling past 25, and that's Michigan's Will Johnson.
Hmm.
Ooh. You think he might be there?
I don't think he'll be there because been a fan of his talent. He was one of San Francisco's, running mates last year. The big issue with him, and it's not a player issue, it's not a character issue, it's an injury issue. He had a hip injury about week 4 of the college football regular season, and he's been out since. So we're talking beginning of October. No, yeah, we'll say beginning of October. We're 6 months in. He didn't do much of the combine. I don't think Michigan's had their pro day yet. Um, so until we get confirmation that that hip's ready to go, or no, he won't be ready until June. That's going to be his big rise and fall. When fully healthy, he would have been a top 10 pick, guaranteed. He probably would have been a top 5 pick, guaranteed. But it's because of that hip injury that he's gonna fall. To me, his ideal landing spot would be like San Francisco. Have him replace Travarius Ward.
Hmm.
There's another guy too who's a bit of an injury wild card. That's Kevin Winston Jr. from Penn State. Now
Penn
I only know a
State.
little bit about this guy, but I mean, a couple of years ago, he had a fantastic season, and they were putting him as maybe a first round talent, right? And now he probably drops to second. I don't know how wary teams are on his injuries, maybe the third, but it's a risk. I know you guys, like you said, have taken risks with the secondary recently with Forbes, but we won't bring that up again. But could Winston be a guy that you take a punt on a little later and use the earlier picks as the D line stuff?
I don't hate it. He is a pure run defense kind of safety sitting at I'm looking at Stave 6'2", 208. He just had I think he just had their pro day not too recently, and he was full run sprinting. I think he did his 40 or his 100 yard dash. So he was putting in the work. I've got to do more work on him considering he only played 2 games this past season. He played the full 13 in 2023. But he wasn't a name on my initial list, but because I haven't done enough tape, but I wouldn't hate it. I've got Andrew Mbuka out of Texas and RJ Mickens out of Clemson on my safety list. You know, Mbuka
Mhm.
probably that late day two kind of guy, and Mickens in that day kind of three out of Clemson. Both
I like
guys
him.
big. And Mbuka had a great season for Texas, especially in that game against I think it was Arizona State, where could have been targeting, could have not been targeting. They called a no targeting. It was a whole weird thing. And then Mickens just has just good numbers across the board. But I
Mhm.
got to do more work on Winston, but I would not be mad at the pick.
I could be a great trade back target. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't hate that. Let's move to offense because that's what brings in the ratings. That's what brings in the money. That's what the league is going towards now is this offensive led thing. You said offensive line for your Chiefs. The big name as connected to our Commanders, UNC's Omarion Hampton, running back.
Well, sorry, I just need to make one correction. I didn't say the whole line. Creed Humphrey, I'll keep for the next 15 years. So I'm happy
Fair.
with that. But yeah, Hampton, I
Touche.
mean, where do you guys sit on your running back room? Because Robinson, I mean, he's not a top tier running back. He's handy, and then there are some days where he's really disappointing. And Eckler probably only has one more year, you would say,
Yeah.
as a part player. Is running back the priority for you?
I wouldn't
Uh,
say it's the priority. I would say it is a position that we could target, not necessarily with our first pick. However, if Hampton is available at 29, which I don't think he will be, I think he's a valid option to consider. Just completely due to his talent. Uh, we need other positions more than running back, but when you can get someone that talented right there, I feel like sometimes you got to take it
Where do you think he goes compared to Scatterbo? Because Scatterbo has that full skill set.
earlier.
much
Yeah,
earlier.
I think earlier. Do you reckon a lot earlier, like a whole round earlier?
I think
I
it could be that.
I think Omarion could go as early as 20 to Denver.
Yeah, okay.
I think because Genty's going to go within those first 12 picks guaranteed. If he falls past Dallas, I don't it would be Denver and LA who would grab him next. Unless some team said he's going to be an upgrade over Kenneth Walker or Joe Mixon or Chase Brown. Um, I very well could see Scabdo falling into the third.
You think
Late
that?
second, early third, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's an interesting one because he's got all the tools, and it's just there seems to be something that a few teams don't quite trust in him to take the leap earlier. But then, like, it's very hard to read running backs now because 2 years ago it wasn't cool at all, right? Nobody
no,
wanted to touch a running back early. No one was paying money for running backs, and then we saw the Saquon Barkley effect, and all of a sudden it's cool again, and
two,
we have yeah.
yeah.
We have what people say is a generational talent in Genty. They use that word a lot, but it seems to be the case with him. So I think the
Mhm.
market's sort of been restructured a little bit as far as their value. So I really can't tell where all these early second round talents are going to fall. Will they edge into the first round or do they drop a little?
Right. I think if Hampton is still there at 29, I would pick up the phone and say, who wants to come up for him?
Yeah, okay.
Be
That
Mhm.
makes
because yeah,
Mhm.
because I'm looking at it either I'm doing like a quick kind of mock draft look around just board placement wise. Cleveland could use a running back sitting there at 33. Giants could use one to replace Tyrone Tracy. Raiders could use one to make their Marshawn Lynch because Sean Payne's down there. Um, New England could use one to really solidify Drake May as the quarterback of the future. Chicago could use an upgrade over DeAndre Swift. I mean, they're right there 33, 34, 37, 38, 39, 40. There's 6 teams right there. All with draft capital, all got the cap space. If they said, we'll give you a second, a third, and a sixth, cool. I'll move back a few slots.
Mhm.
And then you can
I'm
take
for
both
that.
Ohio State running backs and just have that running room for you. What do you
Oh,
think of those
it.
guys, Judkins and Henderson?
Oh, if I think Judkins probably has a little higher ceiling than Henderson does, just based off of speed, and he got majority of the snaps, obviously. But if some team was crazy enough to say we're taking both, you've solidified your room for a good decade, barring injuries.
Would you like Henderson in the third, or is that too early for him? Probably a fourth, fifth.
No, I
I'm
think
gonna
Henderson could be a late day too.
Okay.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't love either of them. I
Well,
think
you
they
shook your
both
head
could
straight away,
be.
Andrew.
I think they both could be solid running backs in the league. I don't think any of them have a super high ceiling, super high potential, such as Hampton, Scat Pack, Genty. Those three are really the only ones that I would want on our team.
Huh. Because I have like four names in rounds 4 through 6 that if I got my greasy hands on, they're becoming running back one in my department real quick. RJ Harvey out of UCF, 5'9", ran speed. Devin Neal, Kansas. My guy Brashal Tootin out of Virginia Tech, and then Brashad Smith out of SMU. Those guys, and if around the fourth I could get, I'm set.
I don't know Smith. I know the other guys. And I think all of them could be decent. I just don't feel like they'd be a major step up from Robinson and Eckler because we're already decent. Our running back room is already mediocre. If we add another decent mediocre piece, I don't feel like it's going to be a huge step up. So like we could have done something better with that pick.
We talked about this on the latest episode of the Burgundy Breakdown. Our entire running back room is the same. Third down backs.
Mhm.
No one's got breakaway speed. No one's got to take the top off of defense. You've got to run a Texas route. The guys I named Neal, Ty, and Smith all ran. I think it was like sub 440s.
It's
Tutton
good.
and Tutton and Smith were around that 4.32, 4.28 range.
Wow.
If you put that in the backfield with B Rob as your power and Jaden as the triple option, we're gonna have as many rushing touchdowns as Navy did this past season. I mean, that would be. I mean, that would solve your problem for at least a good 2 years at the minimum.
Can I ask about another position and what you boys think of it?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Where are the Commanders going with tight end? Because Zach Ertz, I know he had a handy year, 650 yards, but he's 34, so you'd think this would be the last one, and he's just gone on for that. Then you got John Bates and Ben Sinnott behind him. I mean, Sinnott didn't get much exposure in his rookie year. He was taken earlier in the draft than I thought he would be last year as well. So
Mhm.
what do you do? There's some really good tight ends. We know the names, and then there are a couple that might drop even later. So is that something you're looking at that you want as a replacement for Ertz in a year's time?
Possibly at some point in the draft, but not with our earlier picks. Uh, I feel like our earlier picks should be prioritizing defense, specifically edge, D-line, safety, corner. Um, but there is numerous talented tight ends that I'd be happy taking later. Or I feel like we're also kind of set for this year with re-signing Ertz and then hopefully being able to get Sinnott more involved, although we'll see how much that happens.
Yeah,
So next year could also be a good year to target a tight end.
yeah. I'm not guys. There are guys on my list that I would take at tight end. If we hadn't re-signed Ertz, I would be more inclined to take um, guys like Elijah Oro, Oreo. I can't pronounce that last name to save my life. Terrence
Arroyo?
Ferguson. Arroyo. I hate you, Andrew. I hate you so much. Terrence Ferguson, Harold Fannin Jr., Jalen Conyers out of Texas Tech later on, and then Oronde Gass in the second. Those are probably my few guys I would target. But if there's a Josiah Stewart and Elijah Roberts and Antoine Powell Ryland at the edge, if Savon Rebel Jr.'s there, if Jaden Higgins there, if Titans there, I'm taking those
Higgins.
guys all over before I'm touching tight end.
Yeah, well, if I can divert it back to the Chiefs just for a second,
Absolutely.
pick 63 and 66. You mentioned the name there, Harold Fannin Jr. Now I know it's the who does he play argument because from Bowling Green, although he did have a really good game against Penn State, but his production was crazy, 1,555 yards. And for the last 2 years on PFF, he's been rated as the number one tight end in the country. Yes, there are some questions. Yes, maybe he's not the full package, but if we want an offensive weapon to replace Travis Kelce and to bring some excitement to this Chiefs offense, or any offense really, I just want to see Fannin play. I want to see him let off the leash. And I think he could go, I think he'll go late second. So it's possible that he's still there at 63, 66, something like that.
I'm
Yeah,
looking at
he
him on PFF right now.
FF.
Against Penn State, he had a 91.7 grade. Texas
Yeah.
A&M was an 89 grade. And then, yeah, over 1,500 yards, 10 touchdowns. Wow. Yeah. I didn't
And I know that's
realize
not
he was
it's
that
not
good.
everything, but when you watch him, like look at his tape, and there's just some real excitement there. He's got good hands, he can move. So any team that gets him, I think he's going to be a star, or he will just make no dent. I don't think there's anything in the middle with Fannin Jr.
No. And I mean, he's not going to be like your blocking tight end, but he'll give you a few
No
reps.
way.
Like
Yeah.
it's not out of his wheelhouse. I could see like that him with Noah Gray and Travis Kelce would be a tight end room for him to learn like how to be a tight end. Because I think the only knock on Fannin is he's an oversized receiver at 6'4".
Absolutely.
But granted, depending on the team, they could use a 6'4" wide receiver.
Well, exactly. And if two of our guys go to jail, like you said, then we might need Fannin. So
Yeah. I mean that would be him because I mean if you put him even on in the slot as a mismatch, he's got the size, he can make a decent contested catch. He's got the yak ability. Like he had 4 drops, but I mean when he's at 333 deep yards, 9 deep balls, it's tied second for most tight ends. What tight ends going deep like that? Brock Bowers?
yep.
About end of discussion. So Chiefs, I've mocked him to. I've mocked him to the Chargers. I've mocked him. I pretty much mocked him everywhere in the AFC West except LA or except Las Vegas because Brock Bowers. Get him a stable quarterback. Lord have mercy.
Good call. So what do
I
you do?
met.
I mean, we've talked about a lot of names. Just tell me, as a non-commanders guy, who are you taking? What's your prediction for pick 29? Tell me what happens.
Oh, this could go so many ways. If the board falls right, and I'm sticking and picking at 29, Mike Green or Donovan Ezeraku. I think it's got to be edge. One of those two guys. I've seen Mike Green fall past 25 to Baltimore and Detroit. If he was there, I'd trade him and give it next year's like fourth if I could get him.
Ooh, that's interesting. I haven't considered that. Yeah, Mike Green shouldn't be at 29. If he is, that's honestly a little bit disrespectful to him.
Highway robbery.
So I'm going to agree with you on Donovan Ezraku, and then I'm going to also say Nick Emenbury. Uh, those would be my top two options right there.
I like it. If you're you know the Hunt family and Coach Reed and you're sitting at 31 and they say you have to stick here and pick, who you taking?
Well, if Derek Harmon's still there, and I don't know if he will be, but if he is on the interior defensive line, then I'll take him. If Darius Alexander is there as an alternate, I'll take one of those guys. Hopefully, one of those two are there. So that addresses, that partner for Chris Jones. And then, like I said, got 63 and 66. With one of those, I want Harold Fannin. I think you've got to take him there, otherwise he'll go. So that's the tight end. And then one name that I haven't mentioned yet that I like is as a tackle, a guy named Ozzy Trapillo or Trapillo, however you want to say it,
At Boston College.
from Boston College. And like I said, definitely need a tackle for the Chiefs. And not only is it a great name coming from Australia, we like a guy called Aussie, but the last 2 years, he's only conceded 2 sacks.
Yep.
You look at his face and his build, he just looks like an all-pro offensive tackle. Some guys have that look about them. So I like that. That's a tick. We did that on the Cowboys Can Fan the other day. We
Yeah.
went guys look like, because I think it makes a difference. He could fall to, the 63, 66 range. He's played both right and left tackle in college, which the Chiefs need. They need to be flexible. So I think he's a guy that if other teams haven't nabbed him by then, he could be a nice addition.
Question
Yeah.
for you. If Hampton's there at 31, would you consider taking him?
Yep.
Assuming there isn't a lot of interior defensive line options.
Yes. If there's not the names left that we like at DI, then or DT, then yes, let's take Hampton, because like I said, we've sort of been flirting with okay running backs for a while, and we need something elite because we have not been able to break games open on offense like the early Super Bowl era Chiefs did. It's just different now. So totally, let's do it.
Yeah. I mean, I had high hopes for Clyde Edwards-Helaire coming out of that 2019 LSU team.
Didn't we
And
all, John? Didn't we all?
him and Thaddeus Moss look incredibly disappointing.
Yeah, it didn't turn out. And I feel for Clyde because he seems like a good dude. He showed flashes throughout his early years, but he's had problems with PTSD from things that
Yeah.
happened in teenage college years. So there's sometimes more to it than you think, and we can be brutal, and I'm guilty of it as well on how you assess guys just as players. There's other stuff going on for him, so I hope he's okay. I hope it all turns out, and he can still have some good moments in the NFL. But yeah, you get a pretty short window in the league, especially as a running back. So we've got to move on from the errors we made in the past as a drafting unit and find our new boy. And Pacheco, even Pacheco, early on, he looked really, really good. But since a couple of injuries, he just seems to have lost a little bit of dynamism and isn't quite that guy that he was in his year. So
Yeah.
someone new, I think.
Yeah, fresh face never hurts anybody. I'll throw out one more name for your Chiefs, and we'll start wrapping things up. Back on the offensive line, Wyatt Milum, West Virginia tackle, 6'6", 317, no sacks in 3 years, all at left tackle.
Well, I like that. That's a nice stat line. It doesn't get better than that, does it?
No, the one knock everyone until his pro day was knocking was his arm length of, is he going to be a guard in the league? Is he going to be this? He's going to be that. No, he measured out well. It's the same. He and Will Campbell were in the same conversation of great offensive tackles, gonna be franchise guys. Is their arm length gonna get them in trouble? Will Campbell does measure like 34.5-inch arms. And he said at the press conference, like, I've played elite level football for 2 years, and now get to the draft and all of a sudden I can play guard. No, it's BS. And I'm like, he's absolutely right.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's often too much put into these metrics. I mean, they're right about Kenny Pickett and his small hands. That didn't work out. But a few other things I think are a bit overstated. Where do you think Milum goes? Because, I mean, he's been rated so highly by PFF over the last few years. He's been a consistent performer, as you say. Is he day two? Where on day two?
They have him listed 90th ranked in the class.
No,
I
earlier.
don't. Yeah, he might go a little earlier. He'll probably. I would see him starting at about pick 80 with the Colts, and between that and pick 102 with the Lions, anywhere between there. So your late third round. I could see him, but I mean, there's plenty of teams who could use him. Colts, Bengals, Steelers, Broncos, Jaguars, Texans, Rams, Saints, Chiefs, Bengals. Like there's
So the whole league,
Niners.
basically.
Pretty much the whole league could use a left tackle. So he was one of my guys early on, before we started posting, about the draft. And if there was a way to get him, like if we traded back or if the Chiefs got him, I'd be like, that's a good pick for them.
He's
I
a
like
great player. He should
He is.
be early third round pick at the latest, I feel like. PFF is weird. I don't know why it has him so low, but I love him. So
Yeah. PFF, I'm gonna make this PSA for all of our listeners. If you want a more accurate PFF, and this isn't sponsored, I would love to be sponsored by PFF. Y'all can make this happen. But this isn't a sponsorship. If y'all want a more accurate mock draft, because I've played around with this, take your. I'm gonna go to settings, and I'll take a picture of this for our viewers. If you go to public versus PFF board, put it down to the tick just all the way across the public. Bring it up one. It's the tick right in between verses because that gets Shador and Cam Ward within the top 10. Every other time you go higher on PFF boards, they fall to the 20s and 30s.
So you're saying make it more towards the public opinion ever so slightly rather than the
Yeah.
pure analytics, and that spits out a more realistic picture.
Yeah.
That's good to know because I've done about, I don't know, 40 mock drafts on PFF so far. So
Oh, I've done 40 this month. My computer hates me.
love
It's
it.
Yeah, it's weird because I've said this about PFF boards. That's why last episode we had Emin Wari at 39. Everyone's like, he won't be there. I agree. He should not be at 39. But
Yeah,
PFF boards are
we've
weird.
posted a few things too, and people have a go at us for saying for exactly that thing. Oh, that's not realistic. He won't be there. You know, you don't pick him. Well, it's a live mock draft. It's a program. If he's there, I'm going to take him. I'm not going to leave him for the Bengals behind me or whatever.
No. Yeah, it's definitely weird. But yeah, so if you want to make it a little more realistic, make it more towards public. It raises the boards a little bit more fair. Some things are still gonna be a little wonky. Like I've still taken Emin Wari in the second for the Commanders, just because people are weird about how they grade safeties. But I've also seen him go at 20 or 19 to the Bucks. So you've got to play around with it. There are some other mock draft sites that I've played around with. PFF is generally more reliable. But yeah, pro tip, moving more towards the public board. But no, this has been a great conversation, Curtis. I cannot thank you enough for sticking on with us. It's about 8:40 here on the East Coast in the US. It's about 5:40 at Andrew's time. I don't know how late it is for you over there in Australia.
No, it's early. I'm calling from the future. It's 11 a.m. on Monday, 31st of March. So yeah,
Oh.
Monday's looking good here. I hope you enjoy it when you get there.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Any closing remarks before we get out of here, fellas?
Look, I'm just happy to be here. Thanks very much for having me. Like I said, it's nice to be welcomed as a Chiefs supporter. That doesn't happen very often at the moment. You guys are doing a great job. You really know your stuff. You taught me a lot today. So we'll have you guys on our show at some point soon, and we'll keep building this network because it's been great fun.
No, absolutely.
Thank you, Kurt.
No, definitely. Thank you for coming on with us. I'm definitely looking forward to that. If y'all have not already, hit that subscribe button here on Ballin In Burgundy Podcast, and especially on Outback Quarterback Podcast here on YouTube. Get them to 300 subscribers, get them to 500, get them to 1,000. We're on the road to 1,000 ourselves. We're sitting at 521. Get us there because YouTube is weird about how they push out these platforms. So get us there. Like, share, and subscribe. Comment down below. Is there a name on your board? Is there a name on your list of draft prospects that we did not touch? Did we touch on any wide receivers? If not, let us know who you want for our Commanders, for your Chiefs, or your team. Let us know.
Jaden Higgins.
Jay.
We're not starting. We're not starting.
No, we're not going back.
Let's
But he's
just
absolutely
throw
right,
that out
Jaden Higgins. But let us know down in the comments. And if you see this on Instagram, let us know. Instagram and TikTok at Ballin In Burgundy Podcast and at OutbackQB Podcast. Twitter at Ballin In Burgundy or Twitter actually at BIB Podcast 22. All of our links, OutbackQB Podcast links down in the description. Let's head in to the NFL draft. We are about 25 days away from April 24th. NFL draft, Green Bay, Wisconsin. The current plan is for us to go live. I've got to talk to the BIB fellas and some friends because StreamYard got expensive. And your boys got money, but I ain't got money like that. So we got to talk about a few things. But that is the plan. 25 days till now, April 24th, NFL draft. Your boys probably going to go live for it. We cannot wait. Let's head into this offseason. Let's continue this offseason. Let's head into mock draft season. Let's head into NFL draft season. Let's see how the teams react. Let's raise hail for Chiefs Kingdom. Do what y'all do. But until then, guys, stay ballin', and we will see y'all out there.